questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to, there's this,
I read those things. I think they're tomorrow.
okay, so you're good. Okay. Item number 2, additional appointments for the 2021-2022 school year as listed. We have a nomination, or a motion, sorry. Thank you, Shane. A second? Thank you, Tom. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
There are 2 spots, the School Boards Association on page 3. On the right hand side, a representative is in for the Capital District Group and for the Senior Account representative.
Sorry about that. Missed that. Okay. Are there any volunteers for either of those? As I mentioned in my text, the Schoharie rep was like twice a year. I think there was a meeting in Schoharie County with the other school board representatives. The agenda is relatively light in nature, and then the reps read back to the rest of the board when they've gone to a meeting. So I don't know the. Okay. Thank you, Teresa. For Schoharie. I don't know the cadence of Capital District. I don't know, Jim, if you have any or.
I would guess that their meetings are more regular. I don't know that for sure.
I'm happy to do it as long as they allow remote in the event that I am traveling.
We can check on it. Sure.
Okay. Do we need a revote or are we good? You're good, okay.
And I will check into that tomorrow.
All right, item number 3, approved stipends for those listed. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Tony. Is there a second? Thank you, Francis. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item number 4, information item. Please advise district clerk if you are, if you are an owner of the KeyBank National Association stock for future bonding purposes and matters regarding conflict of interest and the designations as listed. Is there a motion? Melissa, second. Thank you, Tony. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on, item number 5, adopt district plans. Recommendation that the Waynesburg Board of Education adopt the following plans as recommended by the superintendent and building principals. We have that were attached to the agenda, the mentor program, professional development plan, the RTI plan, and district safety plan. Do you have a motion? I'll make a motion. Thank you, Diane. A second? Thank you, Shane. Any comments or questions?
I had a bunch, but I'm finding them again.
Okay.
I think wanted to help you with your first one. One of your questions was about language change to the RTI plan
Oh, yes.
to take out the word weakness. And so I wonder if you're okay if I do that in future drafts, send that back to the committee and say, hey, make it a little bit, the language a little more positive throughout. I don't think I'll have any issue with that. And then the PD plan, the other question for that was the fact that Holly is still listed as elementary school teacher, and that just needs to be updated to whoever is the current mentor chair. I think that is, I don't know. It's in the other agenda, yeah. So I think it's either Michelle Daly or Richard.
I thought it was.
We'll update it to whoever the new mentor person is. We can do that.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, I have on the mentor program, something I talked to Jim about, so we don't give someone a mentor for less than 6 weeks. We appoint like a buddy or something, or a point person that's not in the
administrator.
Yeah, and so, so the question is, what do we do for people who are 6 weeks or less? 6 weeks or fewer? Do we appoint them with something, and should we formalize that by putting it in the plan? I would say no, just because they're not a long-term sub, they're not covered by a union. It's not part of the state requirement. So I would say no, but however, what we do for those folks is they really have the principal and the office secretary as their team. But not so much, we definitely introduce them to other people in the department. There's no.
I guess my thought process was just thinking that if it were someone that we're possibly considering continuing in the district, might not want to appear to not be in the know, it might not want to go to the principal, it might feel more comfortable going to a buddy that or a colleague. So I don't necessarily think it has to be in the plan, but possibly just still assigning a buddy within their, whatever their core subject is.
I think that's a good idea, and it may happen already,
Okay.
but I'll check.
Any other comments? All right, we're going to vote and the PD as amended is lost to make the update. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? She's looking at
I'm looking at pictures.
Any extensions? Item number 6, authorizations. Approve the authorization of the purchasing officer to participate in other government agency purchasing agreements, bids, and purchasing contracts when it is determined to be in the best interest of the district in 2021 through 2022. Approve the authorization of the superintendent to apply for federal, state, and local grants. Approve the authorization of the superintendent to approve budget transfers within limits prescribed by the Commissioners' Regulations, Section 170.2, and Board Guidelines. Approve allowance for school business mileage to be paid in the IRS standard mileage rate. And approve the establishment of the following petty cash accounts as listed. Approve the authorization to sign official papers by the President of the Board. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Diane, for a second. Thank you, Melissa. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Item number 8, bonding of personnel. The blanket bond for employee dishonesty of $900,000 shall cover each employee. The internal claims auditor shall be covered by the $900,000 employee bond. The district treasurer shall be covered by bond of $1.3 million. The position of tax collector shall be covered by bond of $4 million. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Teresa. Second. Thank you, Shane. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item number 9, re-adopt code of ethics and all existing board policies. Renew all policies, bylaws, policy resolutions, and regulations from the 2020 to 2021 school year. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Diane. Second. Thank you, Tony. Any questions or comments?
I'll just comment that we will be getting a new draft of policies. We'll be required when we do that, have to do this particular thing again.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And item number 10, adopt Public Officers Law 18 and Education Law 3811. Be it resolved that the Dwaynesburg Central School District shall supplement protection given to all board members, officers, and employees of the school district acting within the scope of their employment of duties under Education Law 3811 by providing coverage and protection for all board members, officers, and employees of the school district acting within the scope of his or her public employment or duties as prescribed by Section 18 of the New York State Public Officers Law. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Tony. Is there a second? Thank you, Diane.
Oh,
Wait, I don't think she knows what she was saying.
I thought you were saying it.
Don't want her to be in an auction.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Item number 11, announce 2022-2023 annual budget vote, Board of Election date. For revised education law 2022, the annual budget vote for election will be a Tuesday, May 17th, 2022, as determined by New York State Education Department. That's information. We are now, do we need a motion to open? No?
Yes,
Oh, we do.
I do.
We'll do it. Can I get a motion to move into regular Board of Education meeting at 6:20 p.m.? Diane? Second? Francis? Thank you. Going to call the meeting to order at 6:20 p.m. I'm assuming we're good. We're good with the flags.
Sufficient patriotic.
Any agenda changes? Celeste, I didn't know any. There are none. Okay. This time we will open to privilege of the floor. Look like we have everybody here for public comment. So we will move on to the superintendent's status report and update.
I'll just briefly, I just wanted to give an announcement about graduation and all of the other end of the year events that we had, and just to thank some people. So graduation, the prom, and an athletic, there's an athletic celebration. They were all held under a Kennedy. The Kennedy proved to be pretty, I don't know, like complicated to get approval for. And so Jeff and Anand, and also our architects at Ashley McGraw, our local fire inspector, everybody really worked together to make sure that we could go through with that tent and still be in compliance with the law. And I just wanted to thank everybody because I know that took a good amount of effort. I know that our other architect who's not here tonight, Drew, had to drive down from Syracuse to check to make sure that the tent was up. And so, you know, things like that happen, and you know, especially this year, it took a lot of that on everybody's part to make sure that the year went off smoothly. I thought that the prom was very fun, and the kids seemed to have a good time. The athletic event, I also thought was very nice. It was nice to acknowledge all the kids who participated in athletics this year. And just to thank all the coaches again, and to thank Penny for their work in giving us that sense of normal that we really needed this year. And sports really gave that to us. So it wasn't really until I started hearing, you know, speakers speaking on hardwood floors that it felt like a regular school year. So that was very important. I also think that the senior class advisors did an awful lot of work to make sure that prom looked nice and graduation looked nice. And so they're also to be commended. It just, I can't say enough good things about how people took a on baseball field and made it work for these 3 different events. Also would like to thank iSmile. iSmile was president at every single one of our events. And their pictures are beautiful, consistently good. And I told her too, like even in looking through the elementary yearbooks this year, even the portraits are just a really high quality. I think that we have a really special partnership with iSmile, and glad that they're able to cover so many events for us. So these were 3 pictures that they took, one from graduation, one from the prom, and one from the elementary field days, which is my favorite picture, the elementary field day picture. But just really great job. And also that was a great event too. So it was really special to see everybody in person at these end of the year events. To see faces outside was also very important. And it really did give me a sense of optimism for what next year is going to look like. So that's my report tonight. But thank you all also for all the work that you did in making sure that we had a pretty smooth year. We had 27 cases. There were a couple of shutdowns, 4 staffing shortages, but really it could have been much, much worse if you look at some things that happened around us. And so very thankful that this year was.
And I just want to make one comment on that, Jim, if I can. I think thank the partnership between the board and the administration in general, and the communications back and forth, and staying ahead of issues as they arose, and having the openness for us to weigh in and bring things to you that we might be seeing or hearing went a long way for us, at least to be able to field questions and help make sure that the right information is out and not the reverse information. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Next up, we have a presentation. Ashley McGraw,
Yeah.
our architect.
So I have Nick here for Ashley McGraw. Yeah. Nick, if you want to come up here, I'll click through for you.
Sure.
So Nick's going to talk about the next building project that we have. So this is a elementary school bus loop project. So right now, I think that you're all aware that the Buildings and Grounds Committee has been looking at this for a bit, but it's something that we've been struggling with all year. And this is Nick.
Yes, so Nick Cigarelli, one of the principals of Ashley McGraw Architects. Nice to see everybody tonight. Happy summer, beginning of summer anyway. So
I'll also say that Ashley McGraw's contract is also something that's on our agenda later on today. The Buildings and Grounds Committee also went through an RFP for architects, and Ashley McGraw rose to the top, primarily because of their attention to design. Their designs and their willingness to kind of customize for our needs, and even their presentations were kind of already customized for our needs in our school district. So I'm really excited to be working with them, and they've been great to work with so far. So I think we'll.
So I'll give just a quick little background, and I'm sure that Empire has given you a little bit of background and ideas of why we're doing this. This is just a site plan, an aerial view of your existing elementary school. And the buses kind of come in, as you know, from the left-hand side of the screen. And parent drop-off is mixed in there as well. So the discussion over the last few months has been, how do we separate the cars that are dropping off students and the buses that are dropping off students, and make it a safe environment, and also allow for sort of flexibility in the future for additional parking. So there's the existing parking lot and drive, and there's the playground as well. Sorry, that's okay. That's a quick presentation. Okay, so this is a site plan that kind of is the intervention on top of the aerial site plan that I showed you before. So again, the school is the kind of constant here, and on the left-hand side of the, I don't know what's called the west, but the left-hand side of the slide is again that existing drive. The idea is to offer, is to make the drive that is currently there a little safer. And what I mean by safer is we're going to make it more 90 degrees to 7, so that when you're kind of trying to make a left or right, it's easier to see. So we're straightening out the drive right at the intersection, and then we're providing a bus loop kind of on the east side of the school, if you will. And the design right now shows it can accommodate up to 11 buses. You can actually add a few more in a circle that's closer to the school. But it also, and again, this is the goal, primary goal here, is to separate the cars from the buses. We've done that in this design. So the other advantage to this is, while you're having an event, say you're having an event in the elementary school, and have parents come, you can use that parking lot as an overflow parking. And we could get about, I guess, spaces, 50 additional spaces, so we could strike it down.
50
5 Yep. So you also, during the day, also you can have, it's hard to see on this slide, but there's a series of black lines kind of to the southeast part of that loop. That could be parking lot, parking areas during the day as well. And the buses can still make the turn and exit out. We try to also look at a connection between the two parking lots as well. So you'll see there's a drive, this is connector driveway. And the idea is to allow for overflow parking during, whatever events you want to have. And the intent is to have a gate at each end. So during the day, obviously, you do that while buses are coming. But at nighttime, say there's an event, you can open that up. And of course, the sidewalk there would be flush with the, at least in that area, would be flush so that you can drive. I would also note that the grading or the grade that is at the elementary school down to the bus garage is right now, if you're over there, it's kind of steep in one area and then it kind of levels out. The design is to make it basically a constant slope all the way down, so that it's all ADA compliant and accessible, but it makes for a better sort of parking arrangement. What else can I tell you about?
There's a breaker for the wind that's built in there, some stormwater, some management for stormwater underneath the parking lot too, right?
Correct, yes. So as we increase impervious surfaces, we have to provide the area for the water to be mitigated. And so the idea is to put the stormwater management system underneath, and then it slowly releases. And there is a small little retaining wall that we need to build by the loading dock. So we need to maintain the loading dock, but because the grades are such that we're changing them slightly, we need to do some hard to build that.
For traffic buildings and such, this would be where we have the buses coming in from other schools or farms.
Additional questions?
And then, so, that's a busy building slides, but could you talk about, so currently the revolving or something like that, first thing we see is dumpsters. And so, this will give us a much more support that our current door prevalent is.
And if the students are getting these there, where will they enter the building?
So still, it's about the same distance that some of the buses that are entering now. They would go along this sidewalk and still enter the main entrance. Although there is, don't forget that we do have another capital project that we're looking at in the future. And it's possible that if that becomes a challenge, maybe look at a different place to enter to the elementary school. The other thing that I really like about this design is that it doesn't force us into making kind of hasty decisions about the main project to mitigate this emergency problem that we have now. We don't have to touch the playground, we don't have to touch any of the school. Some of the school we are going to touch, but in a way that we would have what we end up planning to. So it still gives the community a lot of time to weigh into that part of the project. This one, I think that the community may be jumping with joy to see this fixed.
Quick question, and I don't know if we talked about this when we walked around, do you remember? That big piece of grass that's in the parking lot now, are we going to do something with that, maybe in the parking spaces? But it's not included in this road.
Right, so doing something with that existing parking lot to fix the landscaping or make that more efficient, allow us to park more in it, isn't included in this project at all. But it's definitely something we want to do in the future.
Can we talk about it?
The students will be dropped off by the third for the existing group that we have now, just right up to the front door.
Right up to the front door. Yeah, so everything would be able to go on simultaneously without fear of somebody whacking somebody or that big pile that we have of cars in the morning waiting to drop off kids, wouldn't have to do that anymore.
The build out to Route 7, is that, we need to contact the county or the state traffic control place or something there? Because it is a problem with us on the level road.
So in terms of agency contacts, because it's an existing curb cut, we can alter it. It's your problem, not your problem. Is your question more about how do you slow people down or get it to?
A little of each. I mean, it is a problem when those buses merge onto Route 7. You know, it's empty currently, but it's children. So,
I mean, I will also say that part of the reason we're having that meeting on the 27th to vote on it, and that we're not voting on whether to do this tonight, is to give those outside agencies a chance to weigh in with comments. I think the DOT and actually agencies.
We sent it to 4 agencies: the DEC, Department of Transportation, Parks and Recreation, Historic Recreation, and of course SCD as well. But so far, the National Heritage and SHPO, actually SHPOs, which is the State Historic Preservation, they said no impact, which I think. But you have that 30 days to make that determination. In the future, if you want to slow traffic down, that takes a little bit more, that's a state road, right? So that takes a little bit more doing to get the state to slow traffic or put a lighter in.
yeah, I mean, the one you might already check, kind of. So, and the way those roads meet, it's great fun. So, something more here probably makes sense.
What is the green block?
Blocks, okay.
Like in the driveway.
So,
And then
yeah, okay, so the idea is when it's really about traffic patterns and how to make sure that the traffic that needs to go to the bus garage, whether it's employee traffic or the buses themselves, is separated from the bus and pickup and drop off. And it just allows for a definition of where the lane is.
Question about the stormwater management. There's the existing one in the south, and there's the new one in the north. Would it be problematic to combine, basically, move forward one in the south, that's the standard capacity? Because they're kind of surrendering, not a huge amount of land, but basically, that surrenders that land forever. And the terrain in the south is kind of more difficult, but I know what I'm talking about. Could we move that down south without any extraordinary, heavy expenses on that kind of, that area up there, more green?
So the idea, I think, I was trying to mention this, but it is on the graphics, it's a little confusing. The idea is to make sure that we put all the stormwater management under the parking lot so that they don't have to have that triangle up there. As we get into the design, we'll know more about what the capacity of the water is, and how big the stormwater management area needs to be. So when it passes, it's positive. The idea is that we'll come back to you again and say, here's where the stormwater management design is, and hopefully I won't even be able to show you that up here.
So that may not be.
Yeah, it may not need to be there. If it is, it'll be a lot smaller.
Now, can you substitute like underground storage? Can you kind of swap underground storage for above ground mitigation measures like existing one?
You did ask that.
I think so. We'll have to look again. It's a campus-wide calculation. It's like, I don't have that thing.
Yeah.
But fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are also doing a portion of this project inside. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that, explain why you want to do that.
So with the state education department, when you're doing a capital project, and they would like you to make sure that you get all the aid that you want, right? So your aid ratio is 80. So 80. Yes. Couldn't remember if it was 80 or 81. And the idea is that when you want to maximize your aid from the state education department, you have to tie any site work to a building. So we're doing work at the elementary school. The idea is you have to do something inside the building in order to get aid for the exterior. It's kind of an old calculation, but that's the way they do it. So the intent is to replace windows at the elementary school for as many as we can do to fit within our overall budget. And that would give you kind of the aid for the site.
So we do have aging windows in elementary school. It's something that needs to be done anyway. But it seems like a very simple project to limit it to just one thing, so that when we're talking about this project with the community, we can say this is the elementary school bus and windows. And that is so nice and easy. This is something that we're trying to turn around really quickly. We're suggesting that the vote happen really quickly. So simply put.
Those windows in the sixth grade wing, 10 years old. Well, how old is that wing? The sixth grade wing? Yeah. 2006. That's quick.
And we'll look, I think what the intent is to kind of say, let's do the worst ones first. And so maybe it's not the sixth grade wing, it might be another area.
So, how do we fund the project? It's because of that school closure that we had last year, it created that extra fund balance in operational costs. So, because we were able to put the money in the bank, there will be no impact to taxes, no borrowing to actually fund this project. So really what we're asking the community for is just to use our fund balance to go ahead with this project. So this, like Nick just said, because we are doing this interior work, it'll allow us to get some building aid back. So that full amount for this value for this project would be it's about the same. It's very close to the amount that we had saved up in third.
Yeah, so summary of the project, it's an elementary school bus with windows, there's no tax. And we have the money, we just need to ask questions. And so what we're doing now is we're asking these outside organizations to comment on it. We give them 30 days, so we meet again on the 27th to talk about two things. One is the environmental impact decision. So we vote on something called the secret. And then the other thing to do is vote on a referendum, whether or not we want to have that referendum. And my suggestion is for a date of the referendum, it's got to be about at least 45 days from the time that we vote to the time that it happens. And so it seems like the elementary school open house night would also be a good night for the vote because people are already out and about. So that's the date that we would suggest for that. Does anybody else have any questions? Any other questions about this project?
In terms of the backup that happens now on Chadwick, whether we're in Shaver Park or wherever we are, does this open more of the loop space to get more parents in the loop? Because then there's the backup,
Right.
you're waiting, and then it's like, causing problems out at an intersection that's already bad.
We shouldn't need to have a backup at this point, so we should be able to people should just be able to come into the parking lot at a certain time and drop their kids off, and they don't have to wait for the buses to line up first. Right now, there's backup, so we can get the buses. So no buses, they can just kind of roll in, drop their kids off right at the front door, and so parents can work on time. They don't need to wait in a long line, no cause traffic accidents. We can get rid of the situation that we have right now, which will still be our emergency situation next year. That little on in his folks build, which I think has improved efficiency. So it allows us to do some drop off pickup at the same time as bus stop, but it's not perfect. And that road is far from. I'm not a very like intuitive driver, and if you did not know how to manage the entrance and exit of that, I can see how it would be confusing. And so it takes away all that stuff too. We go back to just making that just for pick up, drop off, that part.
One more question for two Jeff's, even prior to this year, there isn't backup. You know, when it was only, we were only allowed to drop our children off before, after buses had already converted. So, what I did find this year that was helpful about the new parent drop-off is that we kind of drove around and 3 or 4 students would get out at once, and all 3 or 4 of those cars would go. So, because in the past, it was one at a time. Right? You, as soon as you got to the front door, you could let your child out.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and so it was getting better as the year went on, and by the end of the year, it was pretty smooth.
Yes, yes.
So-
But prior to COVID, there was still backup on Chadwick.
With the exception of sometimes there are kids that need extra help from families, right, to get out. That's an option we can consider. We're just saying, pull if they can now pull into the spot to help their child get out, to allow the rest of the people to keep moving.
Do we have an idea how many children are returning to bus? Because it was on the same very different ratio this year. Do you have any numbers?
It's difficult to come up with those numbers. We know that we'll be home folks the same as we always do, and we're planning for return to normal capacity of buses, but that has not yet changed. And so we still are kind of crossing our fingers that that is something that's going to change. We are allowed to return to normal capacity of buses. And then there'll be a certain percentage of parents that think won't be comfortable with return to normal capacity of buses yet. So I would guess somewhere between where we were last year and normal.
And it'll be K through 12 on the buses.
Okay, well, yeah. It will drop off at the middle school, high school first, and go to the elementary school. Yep.
When do we anticipate this project completion?
So that's good. Yep.
So the schedule, let's talk about that. The idea is that you go to the voters in September. We would accelerate our design as fast as possible. So get target somewhere in December timeframe to get the drawings and specifications to S&D. Approximately, right now, it's about a 10-week review time for the state to review these drawings and then get us comments. So let's say somewhere in the winter time, we're getting approval from the state, and then we're going to bid the project. So you have around 4 weeks to bid the project, and then award contracts, and so on. Obviously, we're not going to start. This is going to work anyway, but we want to get ahead of as many other projects in winter as possible in terms of, being the first project out on there for other contractors. Potentially get better prices.
So our hope is that we get shovels in the ground by late spring, summer 22, and that we wrap it up with that. However, the nice part is that because it's in a place where there is nothing happening, that if it goes a little bit longer to fall, that we can still do some work.
Great night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, presentation and approval of prior Board of Education meeting minutes. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the special executive meeting minutes from June 6, 2021 meeting as submitted. Do you have a motion? Do you have a second? Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the meeting minutes for the June 8th, 2021 meeting as submitted. The motion? Thank you, Diana. A second. Thank you, Tony. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we are going to, as I mentioned in the text, move on to standing committee reports. Instead of, if you did have a committee, I don't think anybody did, but if you did, feel free to update. The idea was to have the current chair, give a description of maybe what you've been working on as a committee, to give our newest board members a little flavor, because what I want to do at our retreat is to finalize the committee membership for each of the groups. So this gives you just here and then follow up with the chair if you guys have any questions. And then before we get into that, I just want to say, I remember the first day I sat at the Board of Education meeting, and first of all, welcome. Please ask questions. This stuff goes so fast, it moves on. Nobody's gonna be bothered. If you don't understand or want the background on any of the items that are listed, Jim's great, he gives us good weekly updates, but please ask, I know. We'll start with the sheet, building spread.
Okay, what we try to do in a normal year is visit all facilities. So in past years, that was usually about 4 meetings a year. With COVID, we haven't kept up with that, although we did one this year. So hopefully we'll get back on track to visit, the bus garage, elementary school, high school, inside and outside. Just to kind of see what's going on, take a look around. And it also helps to have kind of a feeling for the lay of the land, so in the future, if there's a building project, you can, we've all been to the schools, but you can kind of maybe picture in your mind, because, you may be looking at the school now with a different lens, kind of like, oh, why is this not here, and why is that there, and some of those things. So, that's one thing the committee strives to do. Secondly, the superintendent wants to bring something to our attention, get some feedback. With this bus loop issue, kind of bounce the ideas off of us, make us, aware of, what the plans are. And then on the rare occasion, if there's some interest from the public, like once someone had some concern about the bus garage, the lights kind of shining at their house. So we went out there at night, it was kind of the lights, and saw, kind of what it was, given the tail of the check. That's basically.
I would think that this committee would be more active next year than usual, because we have a small capital project we're talking about now, and then we're on our way to a larger capital project, which we hope to roll out this fall, but the following fall. And so we'll be planning stages for that, so there will be a lot to do with that this year.
I would say in general, too, the committees, they meet as needed. Some of them are more frequent, some are not. Depends on what's happening. Also, the committee's responsibility is to report back to the board what's going on. They don't make independent decisions, right? Nothing's decided. They may make a recommendation to the board, the policy committee, for instance, make a recommendation on a new policy. So it's just, so we don't all have to do everything, but we all have a sense of what's going on and can get a little deeper knowledge and report back to us. The education committee, the intent of that is for us to understand and bring feedback back to Jim and to the administration in terms of what we're hearing, what types of programming is out there. Not to say, we think this. We also take a look at the testing results, where we are with testing, and we feel there's a certain area that maybe focus, can give us a deeper dive into those, kind of talk about what the school is doing and planning. One of the new things that we asked for that will begin in the fall is readouts from departments at the board meetings, so we get a better understanding of what's happening in the different areas. But it's really just how will we track as a district, within our own history, how do we track it, how do we compare up against, and what are we doing to move the needle against the strategic goals that the district has.
Policy committee, policy, sort of self-explanatory, but the committee committee necessarily hasn't been functioning the way it should. All the policies should be on a schedule for reviewing. You have to review everything every year, but 3 years ago, I just realized that the policies had not been done in a very long time. So we took on the project of actually reviewing every single policy. We also, 2 years ago, started the term here. It's a service, so they will send us any new policies that are up and coming that we need to have, or that it's kind of like flagging us and let us know, like, if there's a new education law that you need to comply by the state, and we bring those policies to our attention. So we have been reviewing all of the policies and still doing that at the same time. So even though it's taken 3 years, as Jim said earlier, how we just voted all of the policies up again, we're gonna have to do that again once we're on our second draft now. That gives us kind of the last I think. But I love it. I think it's very interesting. It gives you a lot of background, and everyone that has
And in general, historically, this is a committee that we had new board members sit on because of the education that you get about the policies. Probably more in depth than you can ever imagine being with some of the policies, but it's a good place to get familiar. And we won't let Tracy leave, so. The next committee is public relations. In this regard, we've actually made a lot of strides as a district, and that thanks to Jim Green and some new resources from BOCES, I think we've upped our game from a public relations standpoint, but the committee will both weigh in on, things we think we can do, things as a district, observations you're making, again, from PR standpoint, you're hearing things, in the community, so it's an opportunity to do that, but also to talk about what can we do more of, how can we bring more awareness, and how do we attract people to Waynesburg, so our enrollment goes up and isn't going down. I think we've done a lot to talk about what we're doing, but so now time to kind of think about, so I would envision next year really saying, now that we've set the bar, what are the things that we can do creatively and keeping up with the Joneses. But I think that's fun to give a creative thought if you're, when we have somebody who's in marketing, I think we've done some symbols for a while. So you have a flair for that, or really interested in that? It's a fun way to.
So the audit committee is basically, you meet with Jeff and we have an auditor come in and they look at all our funds and make sure that we're spending things appropriately, have an appropriate reserve. They tell us what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, and then we basically just report it back to the board and let them know if we made any mistakes or something we need to do better, or where we need to spend money, or we can save more. And so far, we've been in a really good place, and thank goodness we were in the place that we were in when COVID hit. So,
Can I ask a question?
oh,
How many members are, I think I remember that the expectation would be to serve on 2 committees, right? Is there a maximum or a minimum that you want?
I think you do more than 2. Some of them have committees, I think most are 3, there's one that's 2, is it PR that's 2?
Yeah, here.
PR is just 2 members, and then, the other, I think, have 3 members each, so we just kind of work it out, how it works out, probably 2. I would have, when you're thinking about it, considering I would have kind of like your 2 top picks and a third choice, we'll do our best to accommodate everybody, as current board members too, right? We don't want to jump ship and try something new.
And you can't have more than 3 members.
Oh,
You have
okay.
one.
These are also all public meetings. People generally do not attend them from the outside, but can to see what's going on. They can't participate necessarily, but they can observe the things they can observe.
Okay, we will move on to board item approved information. Be it hereby resolved that the Board of Education of the Waynesburg Central School District affirms that in light of Executive Order 210, wherein the governor rescinded Executive Orders 202 through 202.111 and Executive Orders 205 through 205.3 effective June 25th, 2021, the Waynesburg Central School District will not require vaccinated employees or vaccinated students to wear masks while on property or at school functions. However, unvaccinated students and employees must continue to wear masks while on school property or at school functions until the district is otherwise advised by the New York State Department of Health. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? We'll open it up for questions or comments. I know this was a topic we wanted to talk about.
So just to give you a little bit of background on this, so when we were in the state of emergency, the governor gave authority to the Department of Health's guidance to schools. Now that there's no longer a state of emergency, there's a question about the authority that's backing the guidance from the Department of Health. I think that if you ask the Department of Health, they would say that there is no question about the authority. But this is to just affirm that that's still the logic that we're following is the last guidance that was given to us. We do think that additional guidance will come before school starts, hopefully way sooner than that. We were hoping to get it before school ended, but things are happening at a rapid pace. And so I would just like some sort of affirmation behind what we're planning on doing. And so this is what I would recommend. It is more difficult to police, I guess, vaccinated. It's easier to just have a mandate that says, okay, everybody's going to wear masks. But it's difficult for me to recommend something that doesn't really have any basis in what we're currently seeing from science and what we're currently seeing in the county. So as of last week, the county was at a 0% transmission. And so and there's really nothing that's saying that vaccinated individuals need to be wearing masks indoors in CDC recommendations. So the only reason we would be doing that is to make things simpler to manage. And there certainly is something to be said for that. So really, whichever way the board wants to go is fine with me. This is the one that I'm recommending first. But I'm really eager to hear your questions.
And Jim, just to be clear, these are the two options we have, right? There is no third option at this point because there is no other guidance.
Yeah. I don't think that we're at a point yet where we can just say no masks, we're not following the Department of Health guidance. That's what we say at that point. I don't feel like we're at a point where we can totally split from their guidance. We still want to listen to our local health departments, and that's not what we're doing.
Are there any financial ramifications potentially if we did that?
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
to the school process?
So, yes, so there are ramifications. As I said in the past, if we choose to go out on our own and disregard guidance that's given to us, we always run the risk of putting some of our state aid in jeopardy. So we get about $8 million in state aid annually. And so there were schools that chose to do away with masking and ended up all putting it back on a few days left in the school year because they were contacted directly to say, one, your state aid is in jeopardy, and two, there's a possibility that the superintendent could lose his license. And so they ended up putting their masks back on a few days left. It's very confusing. I know that it's confusing for community members, and I know that it's become a political hot button issue. And I see the signs in the community as well. But also, people have to understand that these aren't decisions that we're making entirely on our own. This is guidance that we have to follow because we're, officers of the public trust. And so, this is what we have.
Questions or comments?
I have a couple of them. I'll try to organize this segment. if I'm understanding correctly, then that would be people under the age of 12 would be masked, right? So the only students in elementary school might be some sixth graders.
As of right now.
As of right now, right? Unless, of course, until the vaccination is one of the things that keeps popping up in my mind is because it's such a, which I have my feelings about in general, but because it is so critical, because there are lawn signs and things like that are community already, what does that do to, how does that impact teachers who have chosen not to be vaccinated or cannot be vaccinated, that they are broadcasting that themselves, that they're in masks, and for children whose parents have not opted to have vaccinated, that they are, born out of the media, all the students in their classes that are wearing them. And what does that do to that socially with their peers, and in the broader community?
I don't know that I have a great answer.
Yeah,
I
these are the
do
things that are concerned about.
I do know that we're in a situation right now where when we go out into public settings, I was at the mall with my son yesterday. He's 6, he was wearing a mask. I wasn't. There were some people in the mall that were wearing masks, some people that weren't. And so, I think that people draw judgments from who's wearing one and who's not, what that means, and what that says about that person. I don't know how to prevent that.
And I agree with you, yeah, and it's really difficult. I just, I feel like it's important to keep in our minds as we're thinking about it, because going to school is not optional, going to the mall is. And so, we have a policy in place, it's not optional.
So on field day, there were several kids that were outside with masks, and most kids were outside without a mask. And I don't feel that there was any animosity towards all the kids who were playing together and all the kids who were participating in their own way, because some kids just refused to participate. But I don't know if there will be an issue. I can't say for sure, but I'm just saying from the missing field day, there was no issue with the kids that had masks and the kids that didn't. I feel like when you're out and about, there are just going to be people that are going to wear masks regardless because that's their choice. But there'll be people that just don't wear a mask regardless because that's their choice. I don't feel like there's any rhyme or reason for some people for the decisions that they make. But I feel like in the school, the kids have been through so much that whether someone wears a mask or not, and even if someone says, how come you're wearing a mask? Did you get vaccinated? They say no. I don't know if it would just be more of a conversation like, why didn't you get vaccinated? I don't know if, I don't know if you guys have heard that there's any explosions in classes or if there was an explosion on field day. I did not witness it. Did you hear of anything?
No, right now there hasn't been anything because a lot of folks have had difficulty with masking policies, have chosen to be remote. So when that option is no longer on the table, we don't know if that's going to be I think that it depends on whether the state's new guidance says you must provide it or you may provide it. And also, right now we have that blanket policy, so even vaccinated secondary students have to wear masks. I will say that it's difficult to explain to an 18-year-old young adult why they have to wear a mask, even though they've done what they've been asked to do by the state.
That would be the thought I have. Having multiple children over the age of 12, and then some under, they made the choices, as a family, we gave them the choice to make the choice that they felt was right for them. But they did it because they didn't want to have to wear masks, right? There was a lot of, I want to be able to reward, right? And whether that's right or wrong, I know that my kids aren't the only kids with that thought in their head to the point where many of them have gone and done that. And I think then to come back and say, we don't know where we're going to be. We also have to consider
this is the beginning of July. One thing we learned as a board last year is things change on the rapid fire. Tomorrow. Right, we could have new guidance tomorrow. I think these are all good considerations, and I just want to ask in general, Jim. So let's say that nothing changes between now and the fall before we start school. Does this topic be revisited at that point? Do we look at, or are we in, is this something that, unless there was a change, we don't revisit it?
I think you should revisit something anytime you want. So this would help us have some clarity for summer school programs. We do have some summer programs coming up, and there were questions about this, especially for middle school age kids, maybe vaccinated, maybe their teachers, participating in those. But yeah, you're certainly welcome to rescind any action that the board takes.
No, Jim, historically, just would generally try not to, right? To go back, and because that way, then everything's fair game to go back and revisit. So I just wanted to find out if it came down to it, because something in the environment externally changes.
I'll also say that if there's no additional guidance between now
I'd
and
be
summer
shocked.
school, there may be other political problems that are happening that might be bigger than this.
Yeah, no, I dare say you are correct.
Yeah.
Because another thing to consider is what we did see with, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there were families that decided to keep their children home because they would have to wear masks. So we also had folks, and have had folks that have said, if my kid is going to have to wear a mask, then they're not going to be in, and they risk of becoming homeschooled, leaving the district if somebody, if something was. So it's just another, there's so many angles to come at this from.
Yeah, and the same thing is that there's some, I've been in discussions where so many people talk about, we didn't get sick this week. Maybe it's nasty, isn't there such a thing? And I think you may find people just choosing to wear because of that. People didn't get colds, they didn't get the flu, they didn't, the illnesses were just really at a low. I mean, some active that might, just they wear it, especially in winter, and have your face warm.
There is that benefit.
It's too early to say, but, the vaccine approval is kind of on an emergency basis. Looking forward, I personally wouldn't be surprised if it does gain permanent sort of approval, to get added to the list of required vaccinations that kids need in order to enter school. And that kind of just throws it in with all the other vaccinations that are required.
Vaccination, my word. Right. We'll clearly get an immediate need with summer school programming, so we have to kind of address that perspective. Are there any more comments or questions at this time before we vote?
Well, how do you tell if some kids,
The school has access.
We do, and we have asked folks to report when they have their vaccination. Usually they're very excited to show their vaccination cards to the nurse, or parents will provide, and if they use that information, we're able to look it up, or nurses are able to look it up. We do have nurse on this summer, we'll be able to tell them. But I'll also say that our job, their job, can be mass policing. So a lot of it will be on people's work, because you can't go from class to class to make sure that everybody's still adhering to it.
Do we know the rates of those that get vaccinated children that are vaccinated here in school?
So that's a good question. I don't think that I have that information.
Like when you change over the summer.
Oh, well, sure, but
I think that it was higher than 50% of the people were able to get vaccinated. But also, I know that there was an uptick when we had our pods here, and so we have the county that's kind of what
yeah,
and so up to
that's the site, right?
Any other questions? All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Moving on to financial items, accept legal counsel agreement with German and Verazio. Well, there's an L there, not a Verazio. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the agreement between German and Verazio, PC, and Waynesburg Central School District for legal services during the 2021-2022 school year. This agreement shall not be binding on the parties until authorized and signed by each party's respective representatives. The motion? Tony, a second? We got three of them. You pick. I was looking at Diane, so I'm gonna say Diane on that one. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Accept legal counsel agreement with Honeywell Law Firm, PLLC. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the agreement between Honeywell Law Firm, PLLC, and Waynesburg Central School District for legal services during the 2021-2022 school year. This agreement shall not be binding on the parties until authorized and signed by each party's respective representatives. Do you have a motion? Motion. Thank you, Teresa. Second. Thank you, Francis. Any questions or comments?
Just make a comment for you folks that we use these two different law firms for two purposes. Gerber and Palazzo, we typically use for special ed matters or HR matters, and for just general legal counsel. Honeywell, we typically just use for building projects. So he helped us with the contract for Ashton Groff, and he'll help us throughout the capital project.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Accept financial reports. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the appropriation status, budget transfer, revenue status, and treasurer's reports ending May 31st, 2021, as provided by the treasurer and recommended by the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Diane. A second. Thank you, Alyssa. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Accept claims auditor's reports. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the claims auditor's comments on general warrant A22, 25.99, and general warrant A23, 25.99. Sorry, the general warrant A23, the amount of $96,955.30, dated June 15, 2021. Do you have a motion? Tony, a second. Teresa, any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve architect for capital project. Recommendation that the Waynesburg Board of Education hereby approves Ashley McGraw Architects, DPC, to act as architect for the district's upcoming capital project, subject to and contingent upon entering into agreement setting forth the terms of such service, and authorizes the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services to negotiate an agreement subject to board approval. Do you have a motion? Shane, Diane, would you like a second? Thank you. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve participation in cooperative bidding. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve participating in cooperative bidding for the 2021-2022 school year as recommended by the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. Lead agency is Capital Region BOCES. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Diane. Second. Thank you, Teresa. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve contracts with Parsons Child and Family Center, Northern Rivers. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the district tuition and behavioral health center satellite agreements between Northern Rivers and Waynesburg Central School District for the 2021-2022 school year as recommended by the superintendent and assistant superintendent of management services. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Tony. A second. Thank you, Melissa. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve Bassett Physician Services Agreement for students. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the Physician Services Agreement with Bassett Medical Center for students for the 2021-2022 school year as recommended by the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Tony. A second. Thank you, Francis. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approved contract with City School District of Albany Health and Welfare Services. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the Health and Welfare Services contract between City School District of Albany and Waynesburg Central School District for the 2021 school year as recommended by the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. Should that be 21-22? Okay. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Diane. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Shane. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve MOU for SRO for 2021-2022 school year. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the MOU agreement between the Schenectady County Sheriff's Office and the Waynesburg Central School District dated July 6, 2021, effective September 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, as recommended by the superintendent. This agreement shall not be binding on the parties until authorized and signed by each party's respective representatives. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Diane. A second? Thank you, Tony. Any comments or questions?
Have we seen any decrease in criminal activity or increase in safety with the SRO being involved in the past roughly 5 years?
That's not necessarily the point of the SRO program. So the school resource officer program is somebody who really connects kids to resources in the community. Is not necessarily on hand to do security work. It is, I will say that more often than not, the school resource officer does prevent students who may have ended up in the judicial system from entering the judicial system by kind of circumventing things along the way, giving people guidance on how to stay out of it. So that part of it's difficult to quantify, but that happens all the time. The school resource officer is a really interesting program. What I'd really like to do is have the sheriff's office come out to do a presentation to the board at some point this year to explain that, because I know that there's been quite a bit of turnover since that program started.
Like, for example, it says in here that there's supposed to be presentations to the public on safety. The only one I'm aware of is computer safety. I don't know if that's the high school, but it doesn't quite yield me like necessarily getting everything we should be getting into that program.
I feel confident that we are. This year is I would say, just based on this year, based on historical.
I don't remember the specifics, but there were things in high school, because remember, it started at the high school and then we had brought them to elementary school after. But there were, I agree, this year there was not. But
No,
in the past-
this year, I'm writing off this year.
in the past, they've been, like, they've hosted different types of things.
They've been, the dogs come through to the kids in high school and see all that. They've also had reason to bring the dogs to school. And it did make an impression on the kids that this was happening.
But
It was a good impression.
even going into health classes or business classes, I know Eric does that a lot. So, that's sort of like community forums and so much. One of the things that we also changed in this contracts in the past, this year, because, I don't know if it was because it was a strange year and there weren't so many kids around, but it seemed like they did have more trainings that were unrelated to the school that the officer went to. And so we had written the contract that unless it directly impacts the school, then we should either get a substitute or be credited that amount of time. For instance, there was one this year where the dog and the officer participated in cadaver retrieval training. That is very important for the community. I hope not very often. It's not something that directly came up to us, but if there was like an SRO training, we want that person to go. So they were pretty good about giving us the substitute SRO did a great job at the end of the year filling in. And we've also asked that person also be as consistent as possible. Because an SRO is no good if the kids don't have time to build relationships. So, yeah, so Eric was out at the end of the year on shoulder surgery. And so wasn't there at the end of the year, but yes, Eric.
I know that a lot of the students have bonds, not bonds, but respect, and actually talk about him quite often.
I'll also say that he did home visits with people and on our behalf this year, with people that we would not have had any other way to get in contact with. And so that is very good. That you can kind of bridge those gaps that we can get to.
Sir, the SRO, sir, is separate than the road patrol. We'll just show up and not direct traffic.
There's one,
They'll just
I've
park
had the
their
same
car in the
observation.
intersection and not direct traffic.
So Eric does sometimes go to the elementary school to make sure that there's no traffic accidents, but he's not necessarily a driver.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Did you get that? Yep. Moving on to other items, accept CSE minutes. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the CSE, CPSE meetings and their minutes from April 17th, 2019, May 17th, 21st, June 4th, 7th, 8th, 10th, 22, and then 2021 meetings. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Tony. Do you have a second? Thank you, Diane. Any comments or questions?
Just, Teresa had asked why there were no comments on some of these. And that was related only to the fact that there was problems with the software and OC's-wide at the end of the school year. And so we weren't able to include comments, and it was probably like information being dropped temporarily. It was apparently a bad scene. So that's why we don't have it, but I was able to determine that all of these meetings, there was consensus, opinions, and parents consented.
And just for record, the 2019, was that it changed to something? Older meeting? April 17th, or is that intended to be 2021?
It was not.
Okay, so the date is correct. The date is, okay, thanks. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve disposal of obsolete books. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the disposal of the obsolete books from the high school teachers as per list attached, as recommended by the school principal. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Diane. Is there a second? Thank you, Tony. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Personnel, approved termination, Kate Horsman. Be it resolved that upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Duanesburg Central School District Board of Education hereby terminates the employment of Karen Horsman effective June 25th, 2021. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Shane. Second. Thank you, Tony. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve appointments. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the following appointments as recommended by the superintendent, principals, and athletic director. ECA appointments are for the applicable 2021-2022 school year and sports season, beginning with preseason practice and ending at the conclusion of the season, including sectional play. All appointments are employees at will. An appointment at this time does not guarantee employment for the entire school season term year. The salary for ECA clubs and activities will be prorated based upon the length of the season term year. The operation of certain clubs and activities are subject to COVID-19 related restrictions. List is as attached and as listed in the agenda. There's a motion? Motion. Thank you, Melissa. Second. Thank you, Diane. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve long-term substitute E. Milsom.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the appointment of Erin Milsom as a long-term substitute technology teacher effective retroactive to July 1st, 2021, Master's Step 3. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Teresa. Second? We'll give it to Brandon. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Here we go. Approve appointment. A. Pinheiro. Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Amalia Pinheiro to a 4-year probationary appointment as an elementary teacher in the elementary tenure area, Bachelor Step 3, commencing September 1st, 2021, and ending August 31st, 2025, contingent upon compliance with the requirements of the education law. Ms. Pinheiro holds initial certification in early childhood and childhood education, B through 6. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Shane. Second. Thank you, Teresa. Any comments or questions?
What is B?
Bert.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm guessing it's Bert.
Yes.
And I did it. I know. Jim gives me the phonetic cheat sheet. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve appointment L. Simpson. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the following reassignment as recommended by the superintendent and assistant superintendent of management services effective July 6, 2021. Leah Simpson, secretary to the principal and director of special education, civil service, permanent appointment with probationary term of July 6, 2021 through July 6, 2022. Ms. Pinheiro holds initial certification in early childhood. That's, yes. That's not what I pulled when I pulled it over. Here. Yes. Leah Simpson. All right, there's no picture. I got it all, so it's just a copy over. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Diane. Second? Thank you, Tony. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Approve appointment C. Hampton. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Carolyn Hampton to a 4-year probationary appointment as an elementary school special education teacher in the special education tenure area, Master's Step 3, commencing September 1st, 2021, and ending August 31st, 2025, contingent upon compliance with the requirements of the education law. Ms. Hampton holds initial certification in childhood education, grades 1 through 6, student with disabilities, grades 1 through 6, literacy birth, grade 6, early childhood education, birth, grade 2, and students with disabilities, birth, grade 2. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Diane. A second. All right. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Colin is here. Thank you. Thank you for attending. Did you have any comments?
Just the comments.
Thank you for joining us. New appointment, Art Canavo. I didn't get that one.
Sorry.
Be it resolved, I should have known that one. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Rosa Canavo to a 4-year probationary appointment as an elementary school special education teacher in the special education tenure area, Master's Step 5, commencing September 1st, 2021, and ending August 31st, 2025, contingent upon compliance with the requirements of the education law. Ms. Canavo holds permanent certification in childhood education 1 through 6, students with disabilities birth through 2nd, and grades 1 through 6. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Diane. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Shane. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Next up is information. So we have a special meeting that Jim was discussing earlier on July 27th at 6:30. That's what I was saying to do. Yeah. Who is available on the 27th? Or I should say who's not available on the 27th. So we have 4.
Are you able to join virtually?
probably.
It could be very, very short.
I will, I have another meeting that night, but I will not go to that one and come to this one. If you don't have more, I'll make sure I'm here, because they might have more. My other meeting might have more. I can afford that. We'll do it, we can do a quick poll, like a couple days before, just to double check.
Okay, at this time, the board is concluding our normal business and would like to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing proposed real estate acquisition and collective negotiations. We do not intend to return to the main meeting. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Teresa. Second, Diane. We're moving in at 7:35. Celeste? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions?
If you're going over 106.
We won't need to stop. We don't need to come back. You want to take your stuff with you when we go, we can just dismiss from there.